The city had a pulse at night that Selene had always known how to read, the rhythm of power, wealth, and danger threading through its streets like an invisible current. The lights glimmered against glass towers, reflecting a life she had fought tooth and nail to maintain. One of luxury, control, and an unspoken ruthlessness. Yet no matter how carefully she navigated it, Adrian Blackwood had a way of appearing exactly where she didn't want him yet couldn't stop noticing. Selene arrived at the gallery exhibition with the poise of someone who owned the room. Although tonight's venue wasn't entirely her domain, the walls were lined with contemporary art, bold strokes, and sharp colors meant to provoke conversation or controversy. Her company had commissioned several pieces, an investment and a statement, both perfectly calculated. Her heels clicked softly across the polished floor, echoing as she assessed the crowd. She did not expect to find Adrian leaning against a polished steel beam in the corner, arms crossed, a sardonic smirk playing on his lips. "Blackwood," she said, her voice tight with controlled exasperation. "How convenient." He tilted his head, dark eyes glinting with amusement. "I find art exhibitions are more interesting when certain people attend." His gaze lingered on her, sharp, measuring, almost predatory. "And you are always interesting." Selene felt a flicker of something she didn't like, something dangerous. He had a way of cutting through her carefully constructed walls, seeing her as she was, and it unnerved her. "I am not your entertainment," she said sharply, smoothing the silk of her gown, "and you have no business being here." Adrian's smirk widened. "My business is usually very specific," he said, taking a step closer. "But for you, apparently, it has expanded." Selene narrowed her eyes. "I don't think you know what you're stepping into." "Oh, I do," he said softly, leaning closer until the faint scent of him filled her senses, a mixture of cologne, leather, and something darkly compelling. "I know exactly what I'm stepping into, and I don't plan on backing down." Her breath caught, though she refused to show it. Adrian Blackwood had a talent for making her pulse race in ways she both resented and secretly craved. He was infuriating, arrogant, and insufferably attractive. And yet, there was a raw, almost obsessive intent behind the darkness in his gaze that set him apart from the others. "Obsessed?" she muttered under her breath, shaking her head. "Excuse me?" he asked, voice low, dangerous, his eyes locking onto hers like a predator. "You," she said, stepping closer so that her words were private, a whisper of accusation. "You're obsessed with me." Adrian's lips quirked into a smile that was both amused and possessive. "Maybe, but it's mutual," he said softly, taking another step forward, closing the space between them. Selene's fingers twitched at her sides. She wanted to push him away, to remind herself that no one could get under her skin like this. And yet, his presence was magnetic, irresistibly a dark gravity pulling at her defenses. "You think you can charm me with words?" she asked, voice a little sharper than she intended. "I don't charm," he replied, tone smooth and low, almost playful. But there was an undercurrent of steel beneath the surface. "I observe and I plan, and when the time comes, I act." "And what do you plan with me?" she asked, voice barely concealing the mix of irritation and curiosity. Adrian leaned slightly closer, his lips near her ear. "I plan to be the one you can't stop thinking about. The one who breaks through every wall you've built. The one you can't resist." Selene stiffened, the words landing like a strike she couldn't dodge. She wanted to tell him to leave, to remind herself that she was in control. But the truth was terrifying and exhilarating. He had already reached her. "You're reckless," she said finally, stepping back, attempting to regain some semblance of authority. "And I don't suffer recklessness." "Good," he said, almost teasingly, "because I don't suffer resistance either. And you resist me beautifully." Her heart thudded, a pulse she tried to hide. She hated that she was drawn to him, that she wanted to see just how far he would push, how far he would dare to invade her carefully curated life. And yet, she couldn't tear her eyes away from him. The crowd around them blurred, a sea of polite smiles and meaningless chatter. All that mattered was the tension crackling between them, the unspoken war of attraction, pride, and obsession. "Stay away from me," she warned, voice low, almost a growl. Adrian's eyes darkened, a shadow of hunger passing through them. "I can't," he said simply, "and even if I wanted to, I wouldn't. You're impossible to ignore." Selene's pulse quickened. She hated that she noticed how his words made her body respond, that his dark, grumpy charm, tempered with something soft and unexpectedly devoted, was starting to penetrate her armor. "You're dangerous," she whispered. "I thrive on danger," he countered, a smirk playing on his lips. "And I've found it's even better when it's shared." Selene's fingers itched, her entire body coiled with tension. She wanted to walk away, to remind herself of her independence, of the control she always wielded. But Adrian's presence was intoxicating, and she hated that she wanted more. "Why are you here?" she asked finally, struggling to regain control, her voice low, demanding. "Because," he said, voice soft, yet dangerous, "you're here, and that's all the reason I need." Selene's chest tightened. The audacity, the arrogance, the obsession, it was maddening. And yet, she felt a thrill she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. You're insufferable, she said, shaking her head, attempting a laugh to mask the tension. And yet, he replied, stepping closer, voice low, intimate, you keep looking at me. Her breath hitched, despite herself. He was right, and the realization was both infuriating and thrilling. Selene had always been in control, always measured, always calculating. But Adrian Blackwood, he didn't play by any rules she recognized. He was chaos wrapped in darkness, and she couldn't look away. I don't know what you want from me, she admitted finally, voice trembling slightly despite her efforts. I don't want, he said, his tone dark, possessive, and a little soft around the edges. I need, and you, are it. The only thing I've ever wanted and couldn't have, until now. Selene swallowed hard. The words struck deeper than she expected. Adrian's obsession was dangerous, but it was also raw, honest, and maddeningly seductive. She hated him for it. And yet, a part of her she had long buried wanted to surrender, to see where this dangerous game could lead. You're impossible, she whispered, stepping back, trying to reclaim some distance, some control. And yet, he said, closing the distance again, his hand brushing against hers, a touch electric and possessive, here you are, and you haven't walked away. Selena's heart raced, a chaotic drumbeat she could neither deny nor ignore. She had faced business rivals, adversaries, even betrayal, but nothing had prepared her for Adrian Blackwood. He was a storm she couldn't predict, a fire she couldn't extinguish, and a danger she couldn't resist. Stay away from me, she said again, voice trembling but firm. Or what? He asked, his lips curving into a dark, knowing smile. You'll try to resist me, that's cute. She felt a flush rise to her cheeks, frustration and desire warring inside her. She hated that he had this effect on her, that his cunning, grumpy, slightly immature charm was breaking through the walls she had so carefully built around her heart. You're infuriating, she said, voice low, almost a growl. And yet, he replied, leaning just close enough for his words to brush against her ear. You can't stop thinking about me. Selene's chest tightened. The admission was involuntary, a truth she refused to face. He had gotten under her skin, into her thoughts, and she hated him for it. But the pull was undeniable. Adrian's dark eyes held hers, unwavering, obsessive, and entirely captivating. You can fight it, he said softly, almost gently, but you won't. Not really. Selene's fingers itched, her body taut with tension. She wanted to resist. She wanted to be in control. But the magnetic, dangerous force that was Adrian Blackwood was already at work, drawing her into a game she could neither win nor escape. You're impossible, she whispered again, voice low, a tremor betraying her inner turmoil. And yet, he said, voice dark, almost tender, you fascinate me, and I'll have you, Selene, whether you like it or not. She shivered, the words sending a thrill down her spine. The chase had begun, a battle of wills, desire, and obsession, and neither of them would back down. In the city that thrummed with power, wealth, and danger, two forces had collided, fiery, magnetic, and utterly unstoppable. Adrian Blackwood and Selene Moreau were destined to clash, to fight, to resist, and eventually, perhaps, to surrender. And the game had only just begun.